Hi guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to jump right into it. In case you somehow totally ignored the title of this video, there are massive, and I mean massive spoilers. I'm basically going to be talking about so many things that happen in this movie because I have so many issues with them. I can't talk about why they annoy me without talking about them in depth. So, massive spoilers, you have been warned. If that is a problem for you, turn off now, do not watch this video. This is just my opinion, nobody needs to go and get hostile, and I know that this is going to be a very long video. It's somewhere between a review and a rant, and yet not on my Kill It With Fire list. So let's just dive right in. Dark Phoenix, also known as X-Men Dark Phoenix, is a 2019 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics X-Men characters. It is the 12th installment in the X-Men film series and the 7th and final installment in the main X-Men series. Directed and written by Simon Kinberg, this film sees the X-Men face the full power of the Phoenix after a mission in space goes wrong. I love the X-Men characters, but I honestly have not enjoyed the new X-Men timeline at all. And after the headache that Apocalypse gave me, I had zero optimism towards this film. Now, I do have some pros to share, and I do not think it failed in every aspect. However, it did fail at the most crucial one, which was its script. Now, I have a great deal to talk about, so chances are I'm going to bounce around from topic to topic, but I will attempt to keep a flow going, but no promises. I'll address the positives, otherwise no one will make it through this long enough to reach them. I think everyone's performances were great. Everyone committed to their characters and the script, and as much as I disapprove of the script's choices, I admire the actors' abilities to perform it as best they could. I didn't feel as though anyone was phoning it in or overdoing it. Even Jennifer Lawrence had some good moments, but they mostly came when she wasn't in costume. The visual effects are spectacular, they are fluid and consistent. The CGI moments don't look or feel like CGI. It does feel like real people with real superpowers, though Storm's lightning looked a little more like static than it did actual lightning. Nevertheless, I enjoyed watching this film as a superhero film and a film in general. It is very visually pleasing, and if I switched off my brain and ignored the other X-Men movies and the central storyline, I'd say it's a delightful film. It does have a handful of good moments scattered throughout the movie. It's just a shame that a contradiction quickly follows and ruins the moment. My favorite thing about this film was the score by Hans Zimmer. It's Hans Zimmer, so you can't go wrong there, but there was just something in this composition that gave me chills. One moment it feels like the score to a superhero film, then it feels somber, then it feels otherworldly. It again is just a shame that I would quickly forget how much I was enjoying the music because someone said or did something that doesn't make sense. Nevertheless, this score is a worthy addition to the superhero scores. Now it's time to dive into this film and address the fact that this film takes place 30 years after the events of X-Men First Class. Eric would be 62, Charles 60, Raven 58, and Hank in his 50s, yet these characters have not aged one bit, and the creators of this film have not attempted to age them either. Raven has an excuse as thanks to her genetics she ages slower than others, but that's not the case for others. To not put any effort into something as simple as age does not bode well for the other elements of the film. From here I wish to focus on individual characters before really getting into the nitty-gritty of the film and lead character. So let's begin with Professor Charles Xavier. This rendition of the character is without a doubt the worst I've seen. Professor X is known as one of the world's most powerful mutant telepaths. He is a scientific genius and leading authority in genetics, and that is only skimming the surface of that character's skills and expertise. Sadly, this film depicts Charles as a base level mutant who struggles to combat a lower level telepathic mutant, no I don't mean Jean, and has started writing this sort of superhero fame and reveling in prestige. They've taken one of the most powerful psychics who has been a strong and motivational mentor and advocate for mutants and made him a monumental screw-up who can't do much of anything. It was unfortunate to see this character become nearly useless. Eric Lehnsherr, also known as Magneto, is another extremely powerful mutant who is notorious for his aggressive approaches and philosophies regarding mutant rights. While in this film we see Eric as powerful, however the personality shift had me feeling like I'd entered the Twilight Zone. Magneto's character has ranged from supervillain to anti-hero and sometimes superhero, but in this film we see Eric has started running a hippie mutant commune where he lives a life of peace, giving mutants sanctuary. So Charles is the screw-up riding fame's coattail and Eric is the pacifist? What land is this? Of course, it takes very little to set the character back to his old ways, but just as quickly as he tries to kill people, he also tries to protect them, and the back and forth was making me somewhat dizzy. Raven, also known as Mystique, has finally bitten the dust, and I could not be happier. When it comes to depictions of this character, the Jennifer Lawrence version is by far the worst for me. Mystique, famed supervillain and assassin who was ranked 18th greatest comic book villain of all time, has been a superhero for these stretch of films, and it doesn't suit her one bit. This film depicts Raven as the leader of the X-Men far more than Charles, and their friendship makes little sense as all she seems to do is tell Charles he's wrong all the time. Mystique has always been somewhat proud of being a mutant, though the character's actions in this film show shame and uncomfortableness and contradictions. During one scene, hundreds of cheering, adoring fans greet and welcome the returning X-Men heroes. Raven smiles and waves, showing her natural mutant exterior, and we even see a young girl holding a Mystique action figure. However, when Raven returns home and is around Charles and her fellow mutants, the one place she should feel safe to be herself, she reverts to an atypical human appearance. How utterly confusing. You show your mutant face to the public, but your non-mutant face to your friends and family? This makes no sense. Mostly because it is all done due to the actress hating doing the makeup. These films make me love Rebecca Romijn's portrayal more and more. Nevertheless, the character did absolutely nothing in this film but die and become a catalyst for war. It's been sad watching a character who in the comics has happily stabbed the X-Men in the back on numerous occasions and is not trusted by them get turned into a superhero. Looking at our central trio and how they are depicted and used in this film is depressing to say the least, but this applies to almost every character. Storm spends a good part of the film doing nothing more than parlor tricks such as creating ice with her bare hands for people who ran out of ice for their drinks, which seems more of an Iceman thing. While she does get in some decent action towards the end of the film, it is still sad to see another mutant described as one of the most powerful mutants on the planet being depicted as subpar at best. Cyclops has a few decent moments. I think he has probably done more in this film than any other, so that is a huge plus and I'm just going to accept and appreciate it. Quicksilver has one moment but is, forgive the pun, over quite quickly, and he is out of commission almost as soon as he appears, making including him at all somewhat pointless. Nightcrawler is still not depicted as Mystique's son, but at least this time around he is becoming more physically active. While it wasn't until near the end of the film and was short-lived, it was a good 1 minute that showed some signs of growth. But let us move on to the Grand Dame herself, Miss Jean Grey, our title character. What a mess she was. Nothing about this character made sense to me, and I'm going to try to make sense in explaining why I believe that. This film appears to be using every comic incarnation of the Phoenix origin story in one single movie, and it is beyond discombobulated. At the end of Apocalypse, Charles encourages Jean to let go and to stop holding back, essentially saying he was wrong to hold her back. She finally unleashes her full power and destroys Apocalypse and saves the day. As she does so, the force that erupts from her takes the form of a phoenix. Cut to this film and we're now acting like that never happened. This film has taken far too many notes from The Last Stand, only made them even more illogical. This film, like The Last Stand, establishes Jean as exceptionally powerful at a very young age. While in The Last Stand, Charles contains her powers, feeling they were too powerful to be unleashed, in this film, Charles suppresses her memories of an accident she caused that killed her mother and left her father traumatized. This was pointless and only led to problems. This never needed to happen because during the scene of Jean as a little girl, she is fully aware her parents are dead and that she caused it, and she was not at all traumatized, which meant that with the proper nurture she would have understood and accepted the accident for what it was, an accident. Charles saving her from a trauma that never existed is a plot catalyst for this film, but it doesn't add up. This film introduces the Phoenix Force as a cosmic energy that can make and destroy the universe, which seems to line up with one of the Phoenix origin stories. But this contradicts the previous film that established the Phoenix origin, where it is not a separate entity but Jean when she transcends and reaches her full mutant potential. This version also chooses to make the Phoenix Force turn Jean into a homicidal maniac for no apparent reason. Drawn to Jean, this power makes her so strong, it breaks down the walls Charles put in her mind, and now all her trauma, which never existed, is flooding back. It was one event, and it never even upset her. Why is this being so overhyped? Either way, this film tells us that she is emotionally unstable, the dozens of suppressed emotions are erupting at once, and she has no control over what's happening. Admittedly, sometimes her power erupts in bursts and it is uncontrollable. It is one of these moments that kills Raven, so technically that was an accident. The others, not so much. As Jean's friends come to lend her emotional support as any good friends and family would do, Jean for no reason turns into a psycho. Police appear out of nowhere for no logical reason, and while there is no impending threat, she attacks them and then turns on her friends. She turns to Eric for advice. He is willing to help, but when the military comes looking for her, instead of staying hidden, she actively comes out and starts trying to kill people who did nothing to her. When Eric casts her out in an attempt to protect his commune, she's still got this face of, what I do wrong? You see, there is nothing and no one telling her to do bad things. She's just choosing to for no reason. She's hurting people for the hell of it. There is no real motivation to it. They could have written her as pissed at Charles for lying to her or pissed at her father for abandoning her and have her get mad at them, but trying to kill or hurt bystanders without provocation is senseless. This film is depicting Jean as someone who lacks control and that her powers are too much for her, which was not necessarily the case in the comics. The Dark Phoenix was a result of a mutant named Mastermind who had the power to create illusions. He manipulated and screwed with Jean's head to the point where she became the Dark Phoenix. In this film, a relatively neutral force is housing inside her, and instead of trying to understand it or get help, she spontaneously goes looking for her long-lost dad and goes on a spree of destruction and doesn't understand why people might have problems with that. We have an alien called Vuk who seeks to obtain and control the Phoenix Force despite it having decimated its planet and most of its species. In a way, Vuk plays the part of Mastermind, but this character starts talking in Jean's ear after she's been on the warpath, so you can't say it's the reason behind it. Vuk and Vuk's race of aliens are not essential to this film. It would have made much more sense to keep Jean as having the Phoenix Force be her natural evolution and include Mastermind as the reason she becomes the Dark Phoenix. This film has tried to do too much and then tried to be too original, and it seems to have had those elements back to front. Another characteristic this film gives Jean has conflicting meaning from one moment to the next. The start of the film shows an unstable young Jean triggered by voices in her head. One could easily see this as a child scared and confused by her telepathic gift. 20 years go by and she has control over her abilities, and yet when the Phoenix inhabits her, she begins hearing voices again, which results in bursts of uncontrollable power. These elements make sense in the beginning, but not with the rest of the film. She understands telepathy, she has it under control, but this is more as if the Phoenix is speaking to her, telling her to do bad things, and it sets her off. But that is not the case, as the Phoenix Force does not communicate with anyone in this story. So really, all this film is doing is making the character appear schizophrenic for no reason. The film used the story of the self-sacrifice from the Phoenix story in the comics and left it open to where the character can come back, just as she did in the comics. Though this is the last film for this version of X-Men movies, I was pleased they made this choice. This film on numerous occasions tries to push a men versus women narrative, and it was cringeworthy. First, it begins with Raven's comments on the women saving the men all the time and how they should be called the ex-women. The way they insert this did not fit the scene for me. After this, characters make it sound like Charles is the big, bad, oppressing male who has been controlling and using Jean for her power, Jean even stating so. Though, there has never been evidence of this, and as a telepath, she should have known that was a baseless statement. The man raises her, gives her a home, nurtures her gifts, tries to hide the fact she killed her mother from her and her father being a deadbeat, and somehow that makes him an oppressive male. Enter Vuk, who starts telling Jean how men seek to control her, how they don't understand her and fear her, and so they want to destroy her. This is not a men versus women issue. She killed their friend. She killed and hurt innocent people and is a danger to herself. This has nothing to do with gender. Other character motivations are just as lousy as everything else in the film. Hank is entirely aware of what is happening to Jean and that she is not in control, yet he wants to murder her for killing Raven. So Jean, who has no control and is hurting people, is labeled a psycho villain. But Hank, a sane, rational person, starts recruiting Eric and other mutants to murder Jean's perfectly okay because he's grieving. Pretty sure murder is still murder, people. Suddenly we have mutants fighting mutants and putting humans in harm's way and not giving two shits who gets hurt. And at this point are doing more harm than Jean did, but still Jean is the out of control one. Just as quickly as these characters wanted to kill Jean, they are dissuaded from doing so because it's not what Raven would have wanted. This fact was made clear even while she was dying, but that didn't stop them. This not making them see reason until the last stretch of the film is hilarious. It took very little to rein Jean in and make her rational and turn her attention on the bad guys, which makes me ask, how did the events in this film get so out of control if it was so easy to talk her down? Humans are more volatile in this story than any other before. One minute they are loving and admiring mutants, dressing like them and buying their collectibles. Next day they're hunting down Jean and rounding people up like rabid dogs. No trial, no wanting to figure out what's going on. They were all primed and ready to turn on them at the slightest infraction. It's quite sad, yet seems believable. Though this seems insignificant as humans aren't featured much in this film. There is just so much in this film that does not add up and frustrates me the more I think about it. Even small things such as asking myself, how is it none of the X-Men needed to wear spacesuits while in space and in a spaceship that was so severely damaged that whoever was inside would no doubt have been exposed to space's atmosphere. Quicksilver is fine without a helmet, as is Nightcrawler, but then Nightcrawler is taped up tight with a helmet when he takes Jean into the craft, but no helmet for her. We see her get exposed to the atmosphere before the Phoenix Force enters her, yet the atmosphere does not affect her breathing. I know they are mutants, but I don't think it makes them automatically able to breathe in space. I know I had far more criticism of this film than I did anything positive to say, but it just seemed everywhere I turned the script appeared to be an inconsistent mess and one that did such a disservice to these fantastic characters. The film ends with Charles retiring and the school being renamed the Jean Grey School, which is insane to me. I understand she made a big sacrifice at the end, but renaming your school after someone who killed and wounded a lot of people is not the best image to send to future students. Even the cliche speeches where the bad guy says emotions are a weakness and the hero countering with emotions are a strength, it's all been done before and a lot better if I'm honest. You may not believe me, but I did not hate this film. I have a ton of issues with it, no doubt, but I don't hate it. Because underneath there is some good stuff there, and had they taken a different approach, this film might have been epic. They certainly had all the tools, they just didn't put it together the right way. I liked aspects and even had some scenes I enjoyed, but overall I can't get over what a colossal mess this was. Well, that actually wasn't anywhere near as long as I thought it would be. I really thought it would be a lot longer than that. Hey, go me! I mean, it's still long, it's just not as long as I thought. I predict some people are going to try and tell me I look too much into it, but you know, superhero movies and TV shows and comics and all that stuff, they're so strongly built around mythology and backstory and all this stuff, and it just seems when it comes to these films, each time a new one comes along, they're just like, fuck it, we don't care, we'll just make up shit. It's like, but that doesn't work with what you did in the last one. They're like, yeah, we don't care. It's like, just, I wish that there was some semblance of consistency. And the fact that we know that this film had reshoot after reshoot and the release date got pushed back and then it got pushed back again. And it's just like, this was the end result? Really? After all those attempts at trying to fix something, this was what you got. Like, it makes me wonder, Jesus Christ, what was it like before the reshoots and everything? Like, was it worse? Or was it actually better? That would actually make me feel very sad to think that maybe the story was a lot better prior to reshoots and then the reshoots kind of ruined it. I don't know, because we don't really know what it was before that. I predict when the DVD comes out there will be a lot of deleted scenes and God only knows what's going to be in there, but yeah, this just, I don't get it. Like, seriously, I'm still thinking about that scene when all Jean had to do was stay in that little hut, keep her mouth shut and pretend she wasn't there. Eric was playing stupid. He flat out was like, nah, I haven't seen her, don't know where she is. He wasn't going to let them go near her because he is far more protective of mutants than he is of humans. And yet, she had no reason to leave the safety of that little thing, but nah. And here's another thing. As we establish at another moment in the film, she was using her telepathy to make people not be able to see her, that she just looked like someone else. She was messing with their heads. So she could have done that. If someone walked in, she could have easily made them, you know, think that she wasn't there. So the fact that she had all these other options that involved not hurting anyone, because she's all, oh my god, I'm so sad, I hurt people, I don't want to hurt people. And then she's just like, yeah, fuck it, I'm just gonna go and start, you know, trying to kill people. Why? Oh, I have no reason, I just feel like it. Anyway, I would still watch this again. I would just have to focus really hard on trying to tune everything that pisses me off out and just focus on other little things. But I mean, there was just some stupid things included in this film, including a mutant whose superpower was to make his dreadlocks extremely long and then use them as a weapon. Like, what kind of power is that, and why? Of all the mutants and all the powers you could choose to depict in this film, did you go with someone who can just grow their hair and choke you with it? I mean, isn't that kind of what the character, was it Medusa from the Inhumans? Isn't that what she could do? But either way, in context of this movie, the fact that he's fighting Storm and he's winning, I was just like, oh, I can't. I just can't. Anyway, it's still not the worst film I have ever seen, but I think when it comes to the X-Men movies, this one might be on the bottom of my list. I don't know. I'd have to rewatch them all, and I don't really want to right now. So, anyway, thank you so very much for watching this review / lengthy detailed explanation on everything I felt was wrong with this movie. So, if you've seen it, comment down below, share your thoughts on this movie. But I'm gonna go get some rest. So, as always, time to thank my patrons, and until next time, bye!